Welcome to This Explainer. You know, we've all been there. You're driving, you hear the sirens wailing, you pull over, and you watch an ambulance speed past. And you might have wondered, what exactly is happening inside that box? Honestly, it's so easy to think of all ambulances as basically the same thing, right? Just fast trucks with stretchers in the back. But, as you'll see, not all ambulances are created equal. The distinction between them actually defines the entire clinical capability of a mobile medical unit. It determines exactly what kind of life-saving interventions are even possible during that absolute critical window of emergency care we call the golden hour. So today, we're going to break down the highly specialized engineering and the medical protocols that separate a basic life support unit from an advanced life support unit. It's time to stop thinking of ambulances as just transport vehicles and start reimagining them as highly engineered medical ecosystems.
Here's a quick roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to define the technical boundary, explore the medical equipment matrix, look at the interior engineering, and then wrap things up with fleet strategy and costs. Let's get right into it.
All right, Section 1, defining the technical boundary. Let's take a look at the distinct mission profiles of these two vehicles.
So, at its core, the difference really comes down to the mission itself. A BLS, or Basic Life Support Ambulance, is designed strictly for transport and stabilized protocols. Think of it as non-invasive care. It's meant for patients who need medical monitoring, sure, but who simply don't have life-threatening conditions requiring invasive procedures. Now, in stark contrast, an ALS, or Advanced Life Support Ambulance, is often referred to in the industry as a literal mobile ICU. It is engineered from the chassis up for active intervention. That means it provides the infrastructure for invasive airway management, complex cardiac monitoring, and advanced drug administration, all on the fly, going 60 miles an hour.
Because of these different missions, choosing the right vehicle completely depends on the clinical scenario. A BLS unit, that's your absolute workhorse. It handles routine hospital discharges, non-critical transfers between facilities, and basic emergency responses. They're incredibly efficient for short transits. But when a 911 call drops for something severe, we're talking cardiac arrest, major trauma, respiratory distress, or an ICU-level long-distance transport, an ALS unit is absolutely mandatory. You just cannot send a BLS to do an ALS job when a patient is unstable. It's that simple.
Moving right along to Section 2, the medical equipment matrix.
The mission profile we just talked about directly dictates the specialized medical payload these vehicles carry. So, what actually physically separates a basic transport from a mobile ICU? Well, the answer lies in a massive technical divide within their onboard life support systems.
Okay, let's dive into this equipment matrix, because this is where the magic really happens. A BLS relies heavily on basic non-invasive gear. We're talking simple oxygen masks, a standard AED, and basic meds like an epinephrine pen or some glucose. But an ALS unit, it carries an absolute arsenal for invasive procedures. Instead of just a basic oxygen mask, you have endotracheal intubation kits and actual transport ventilators. Instead of an AED, you've got manual defibrillators with full 12-lead ECGs, you've got IV fluids, antiarrhythmics, sedatives. They even carry advanced diagnostic tools like capnography and point-of-care blood chemistry analyzers. It is quite literally bringing the intensive care unit directly to a patient's driveway.
But here's the kicker. How do you actually power all of that life-saving tech? I mean, you can't just plug a transport ventilator into a cigarette lighter. The vehicle absolutely must support a massive continuous power draw. This requires some heavy-duty engineering, upgraded alternators, dual battery systems, and high-capacity pure sine wave inverters, or UPS systems. This intense electrical backbone ensures that critical multi-parameter monitors and ventilators stay perfectly functional, without missing a single heartbeat, even when the ambulance engine is completely turned off at the scene.
All right, Section 3, engineering the interior.
You know, you can't just toss all this advanced equipment into the back of a standard delivery van and call it a day. An ALS ambulance requires a highly sophisticated interior layout, primarily because the medical crew needs procedural space to perform critical interventions while moving at high speeds. First up, look at the ergonomics. While a BLS might just have a simple bench seat, an ALS features what's called the captain's chair right at the head of the stretcher. This specific placement is crucial. It allows a paramedic to manage a patient's airway and monitor the ECG screen simultaneously. Second, let's talk gas systems. BLS uses portable oxygen cylinders, but ALS features a fully centralized oxygen manifold system with external access ports, purely for the high-flow oxygen that ventilators require. And third, integrated communications. Modern ALS units are incredible. They incorporate 5G-enabled telemedicine cameras and data modules that stream real-time patient vitals straight to the receiving hospital's trauma team before they even arrive.
So, how does all this build into the physical structure of the vehicle itself? Well, ALS units generally favor a high-roof chassis. Think of a Ford Transit or a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter. Why? Because the medical staff literally need vertical space to stand completely upright while performing CPR or managing IV poles. Furthermore, they need specialized, high-density PVC or aluminum alloy cabinets. These provide incredibly secure storage for controlled substances and delicate electronics, all while remaining lightweight enough to maintain a stable center of gravity on the road. And get this, all of it must meet incredibly strict national standards. We're talking alphanumeric codes like GB/T19359 in China or KKK-A822 in the US, which dictate everything from the exact pull force resistance of the stretcher mounting points to the actual bacterial resistance of the interior walls. Absolutely wild.
Real quick, before we leave the interior, I want to highlight the negative pressure system. Basically, this is a system that actively filters exhaled air to prevent cross-infection. Now, while this can technically be installed in either vehicle type, it is overwhelmingly common in ALS units used for transporting highly infectious, critical patients. And I think this just brilliantly illustrates the high-stakes, uncompromising environment that an ALS unit is fundamentally designed to handle.
Okay, our final section, fleet strategy and costs. So, how do cities and municipalities actually procure and balance these incredibly specialized vehicles out in the real world? Well, it starts with this staggering number right here. An advanced life support ambulance can easily cost upwards of $250,000 direct from the manufacturer. To put that into perspective, a standard BLS unit usually starts around $40,000. That massive cost difference is entirely driven by the higher medical payload, those heavy-duty power management systems we talked about, and that customized ICU-style layout. And while it might be technically possible to try and upgrade a BLS to an ALS later on, it's a huge headache and highly inefficient. The complex wiring, the reinforced mounting, the oxygen piping, all of that really needs to be specified right during the initial manufacturing phase.
But the financial stakes aren't just in the hardware. Day-to-day operational costs absolutely skyrocket for ALS. A BLS ambulance is usually staffed by EMTs, emergency medical technicians, or basic responders. But an ALS ambulance requires at least one highly trained paramedic, or in some regions, a specialized nurse or even a physician, someone who is legally and medically certified to perform those invasive life-saving procedures. So you're paying for a much higher level of expertise.
Because of this, deciding on the overall fleet mix is a really delicate balancing act. It's a tightrope walk between budget constraints and clinical capability. For most regional EMS systems, a ratio of 3:1 is a pretty common starting point. That means 75% of the fleet are BLS units, which handle the bulk of routine transfers and discharges. This reserves the highly expensive, highly capable 25% ALS units strictly for the high-acuity, life-or-death 911 calls.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer. I want to leave you with a vital question to consider. Think about the sirens you hear in your own neighborhood. How does your local municipality balance this budget versus capability tightrope? The next time you see an ambulance rush by, you won't just see a truck anymore, right? You'll know exactly whether you're looking at a vital transport unit or a highly engineered mobile ICU fighting to maximize that golden hour. Keep learning, stay curious, and thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.